Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly a privilege and an honor to engage with ICAP on this event today. Firstly, I just wanted to sincerely thank Hina Osmani, Council Member and Chairperson, Overseas Coordination Committee, and Farooq Khan from ICAP chapter in Australia for reaching out to me with an invitation to speak. So thank you very much. Whilst signing up for this event, I took the liberty to ask the organizing committee if I would be expected to deliver my talk in Urdu, and I was informed that this event will engage international audience, and therefore English will be the medium of communication. As I have not had much opportunity in my last 20 years of my career to deliver professional talks in Urdu, it still remains a fascinating idea for me, which hopefully I'll be able to do on another occasion. My apologies for digressing, and let me get to the topic now. In the past few years, COVID-19 struck and transformed the landscape of businesses across the board. In healthcare industry, where I work, is no exception. So now, as the world is coming out of pandemic, hopefully, the world's leading economists have spent most of the 2022 convincing themselves that if the global economy was not already in a recession, it is about to fall into one. The prediction of a recession stems from the facts that economic growth has slowed down in the wake of rising interest rates, a 41-year high rates of inflation, a very tight skilled labor market, disruption in the global supply chains, which was previously due to COVID-19 pandemic and now due to conflict between Russia and Ukraine, all while COVID-19 variants continue to lurk in the background. I will take a pause here and admit that I'm not an economist, and therefore it's not my job to make predictions about how high interest rates are going to go up further into the new year, or to what extent GDP of different economies will tumble from their current state. All right, so just to briefly introduce myself and the roles that I play in different walks of my own life, I wear three hats simultaneously. Firstly, I'm the Global Chief Financial Officer of a business that operates in multiple jurisdictions, and therefore part of my job is to watch out how the changing economic factors might impact financial health of my business. Secondly, I am a non-executive board member of an international healthcare organization, and as a board member, it is my duty of care to evaluate potential economic implications on strategic objectives of the business that I'm responsible for. And thirdly, in my own personal life, I'm the head of a household, and therefore any economic downturn can potentially implicate my own personal finances, and therefore I got to watch out that space as well. Now, given the volatile economic climate that we all live in today, the big question here is, if there is an economic crisis, which could be more than likely, how do we navigate through it successfully, not only as businesses, but also as nations and as individuals? Well, before we go about finding an answer to this multi-million-dollar question, first, we would need to see what are the key risk factors that are making the world economy so vulnerable to a deep financial crisis to 2023. And I promise you that I have not invented anything new. I'm just going to echo what Salman has already touched upon during his part of the talk. But I've listed down a few points which I think are pertinent. So I'll, without doing an assisted reading, I'll just go through these points one by one. I think the first key risk is, and again, as the previous speaker has already talked about, is the energy crisis in continental Europe. We all know that Russia has completely or partially cut off gas flows to almost 12 EU countries. What it would mean is that a major part of the industrial sector would be forced to hold back their energy usage and potentially reduce their workforce. Also, high energy prices will lead to bankruptcies as businesses become unprofitable. The next point on my list is a staggering level of commodity prices and global food insecurity. The world has recently seen more frequent extreme weather events, like of what we have also witnessed in the form of devastating floods in Pakistan, droughts and heat waves in the US, Europe, and China. They are all contributing to the rising pricing of some foodstuff. Also, the war between Russia and Ukraine, two of the world's largest agriculture exporters, has also led to huge price spikes, and which also raises the risk of food insecurity. The third point on my risk, which again is a key risk factor from the global economic crisis perspective, is the conflict between China and Taiwan, which might force US to intervene. Even though a direct conflict is less likely in my view, however, recently military exercises by China and a more aggressive Taiwanese response raises the risk of miscalculation, which could actually result into a wider conflict that would wipe out the semiconductor industry in Taiwan, on which global supply chains heavily rely. It also poses the risk of pulling US, Australia, and Japan into the conflict, which can be catastrophic. The next point on my risk list is a high global inflation. It's no surprise to anyone. We all know that a high level of inflationary environment not only fuels social unrest, but it also drives many businesses out of the market. Now, a persistent inflationary pressure caused by supply chain disruptions and Russia's invasion of Ukraine has pushed global inflation to its highest level since the 1990s. Another one is, what if a new variant of coronavirus springs up? A new deadly variant or even another infectious disease can send global economy back into a recession. If another aggressive variant of the virus surfaces, countries may impose lockdowns, consumer and investor confidence would sink, leading to a downturn in financial markets and retail sector, apart from many other sectors. Then we've got a cyber warfare. A cyber war amongst nations can cripple the state infrastructure in major economies. I talked about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and tensions surrounding Taiwan. These conflicts have increased the likelihood of major state-on-state cyber attacks. It can lead to shutting down of state infrastructure, which can severely disrupt business operations at the global level. And then we have got the growing love affair between the Western world and China. And this can easily result into a full decoupling of the global economy. Due to the growing tension, West could unite to impose trade and investment restrictions on China. China could block export of raw material and goods crucial to the Western economies. And this will have implications on supply chain and operational disruption for the businesses. Then we have got aggressive monetary policies. Major central banks around the world are rapidly raising interest rates to combat inflation. These measures are fueling increase in the cost of borrowing. This would undermine the household purchasing power in the wake of the high energy and commodity prices. In the developed countries, the economic slowdown could result in an asset market crash, something that we have also experienced here in Australia, where the property market has declined significantly from where it was last year, and so are the equity markets. Whereas in the emerging markets, interest rates rises will trigger an extreme currency devaluation, as Mr. Tola has explained in his talk, and raises the risk of sovereign debt default, as it has happened in Sri Lanka very recently. And last but not the least on my list is the risk of Russia and Ukraine conflicts turning into a global war. The global economy in the extreme scenario can actually fall into a deep recession, and obviously with a severe humanitarian crisis. All right, now as we have talked about the underlying risk factors which may trigger the crash of the global economy, it is also important to note that, that economic variables of different jurisdictions around the world vary considerably, and they are likely to react differently should there be a global economic crisis. Okay, I think we are in the home stretch now, and I'm ready to go ahead and present the way forward. But before I do that, I can comfortably say that I'm not going to enlighten any one of you with anything to do with scenario planning and the robust cash flow forecasting and some of the other technical accounting techniques that we use in the financial world to plan for the future. Instead, I would like to emphasize on two critical attributes in dealing with the prevailing economic circumstances that nations, businesses, and individuals are facing together. These attributes are agility and resilience. What do they mean? Being agile is the ability to think and move quickly. And being resilient is the ability to withstand and recover quickly from a difficult condition. Since I work at Aspen Medical, where a lot of work that we do is around project management, it not only requires us to be highly responsive to the situation, but also to be highly collaborative in our approach to achieve deadlines in a very high stress and a high tempo work environment. A practical demonstration of this core value of Aspen Medical is what I have witnessed firsthand during COVID-19 pandemic. From provision of healthcare facilities to the indigenous communities in remote part of the United States of America, to ramping up clinical workforce in UAE, and from managing the supply chain of vaccines in Papua New Guinea to quickly establishing COVID surge facilities right across here in Australia. We all have seen that most resilient companies during 2008 economic crisis geared up for the recession earlier than their counterparts. Even if they have lost revenue during the downturn, the resilient ones had higher EBITDA margins because they were able to reduce their fixed cost earlier in the recession cycle. The resilient companies were in a stronger financial position than the others in the industry because they built flexibility into their investment planning and operations and were able to increase their earnings. When that recession was at its worst, the resilient ones were able to reduce their debt more than others, using funds from divesting businesses and certain assets. The resilient ones had more cash that was then used to acquire assets from their competitors that had to sell assets when the overall economy improved. There have been 12 recessions since World War II, and a recession can last up to a couple of years. Not all countries or all businesses are affected to the same extent as others in a recession. No matter where you are in the world, you will find that agile and resilient nations, businesses, and individuals are in the best position to weather the impact of a recession and come out stronger on the other side. As they say, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And with that, I conclude my talk and would like to thank you once again for having me today. Thank you.